Right now, as you were listening to this, your brain is functioning as this um, highly sophisticated, impeccably logical prediction engine.
Oh, absolutely. It's constantly working.
Right. It is processing the ambient temperature of your room, it's interpreting the syntax of my words, and it's basically maintaining a stable, coherent model of
A
reality.
very stable model, yeah.
But tonight, for roughly 90 minutes at a time, that entire system is going to undergo this radical, violent architectural shift.
Which is just a wild thing to think about.
It really is. Your prefrontal cortex, which is the part of you that applies logic and understands the laws of physics,
Hmm.
is going to effectively shut down.
Completely offline.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, your amygdala will just flood your system with fear-inducing chemicals, and your visual cortex will trap you inside this hyper-realistic, inescapable hallucination of its own making.
That's a great way to put it, a hallucination.
And today, we have our hands on the blueprints
Yeah.
to one of those hallucinations.
And not just a standard blueprint either. I mean, we are looking at a highly anomalous architectural marvel of the subconscious today.
Yes, we are.
The source material for this deep dive is this meticulously recorded dream diary entry. And it details a sequence that occurred during a phase the Japanese actually call Naidon.
No, I don't. So falling back asleep after you've already woken up prematurely.
Yeah, exactly.
It's that shallow, weirdly lucid slumber you fall into when you hit snooze on your alarm on a Sunday morning.
Yeah, and physiologically speaking, Naidon is a fascinating frontier. When you wake up and immediately go back to sleep, you are essentially dive bombing straight back into rapid eye movement or REM sleep. But your brain chemistry hasn't fully reset yet.
Huh. So what does that mean for the brain?
Well, your acetylcholine levels, which are the neurotransmitters responsible for arousal and memory, they are hovering at near waking levels.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so you are sitting right on the razor's edge of conscious awareness.
Okay, I see.
Which means the barrier between your conscious logic and your subconscious rendering engine is practically non-existent.
That sounds intense.
It is. The dreams generated in this state are notoriously dense, vivid, and, well, structurally complex.
Which brings us to our mission for today's deep dive. We are going to deconstruct this specific hour-long Moinadone dream step by step.
Step by step, yeah.
We are moving far past the what of the dream, and we're going to drill down into the how and the why.
The mechanics of it all.
Right. How does the human brain take a mundane anxiety like, say, a Wi-Fi outage or a tourist trap and just neurologically weaponize it?
It's incredible how it does that.
And how does the hippocampus pull random pop culture fragments and weave them into this totally coherent narrative of survival?
Well, we will be examining this through the lenses of neuroscience, evolutionary psychology, and spatial cognition.
Definitely.
Because while the events of this specific dream diary are, deeply bizarre,
Oh, they are so bizarre.
the underlying neural pathways that constructed it are completely universal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So for you listening right now, just keep in mind, while we're picking apart someone else's wild ride today, the mechanics we are exploring, like the way your brain morphs spatial geography, or the way it hallucinates authority figures, or simulates physical pain,
Yeah.
this is the exact same computational process your own brain executes every single night.
Every single night, without fail.
So let's dive in. The dream opens with a continuation of a previous dream, which, right off the bat, already establishes a compromised baseline.
Right, you're already in it.
The dreamer is located in this highly sophisticated, really stylish airport lounge.
Okay.
They are having drinks with old classmates. The lighting is low. The mood is relaxed. The physics of the world seem completely stable.
It feels safe.
But then the social contract is totally shattered. The bill arrives, and it is for an unimaginably extortionate amount.
See, this is a brilliant starting point for stress simulation. We often think of nightmares beginning with, like, monsters are falling from great heights,
Yeah, the classic nightmare stuff.
Right. But the subconscious is actually much more insidious than that. It targets the abstract constructs that keep our modern lives safe.
Oh, that makes sense.
The airport lounge is what the anthropologist Marc Auger called a non-place. It's this liminal space of transience.
A non-place.
I like that.
Yeah, you have no community there, no roots, and really no inherent protection.
You are totally off the grid of your own life.
Exactly.
And the antagonist that the brain generates to exploit this vulnerability is not some demon, it's just the owner of the lounge.
Right.
And he's described specifically in the source text as this skinny, small-framed man in his 60s. I mean, he is physically completely unintimidating.
But he holds all the power.
Yes. because he corners the group by casually mentioning that he has these deep structural ties to the Yakuza, the Japanese organized crime syndicate.
Wow.
So suddenly, this frail older man wields this asymmetrical absolute power. The group realizes they've been caught in a trap, and they're basically forced to pay this astronomical bill. The brain is actively mapping a waking world anxiety here, like the fear of hidden clauses or financial ruin or bureaucratic entrapment onto a physical avatar.
That is so true.
The Yakuza represent this invisible architecture of consequence. You can't just punch a syndicate, right?
No, you
You
can't.
can't outrun a debt. So the brain is basically testing the dreamer's response to systemic powerlessness.
But I kind of want to push back on how the dreamer actually responds here, because it completely defies logic.
Okay, how so?
Well, after being financially ruined by the mob, the dreamer and their friends just step out of the airport and find themselves in this sprawling, Tokyo-like metropolis.
Hey.
And they are laughing. They're literally walking down the street saying, well, life happens. What can you do? Let's go catch the train.
Ah, yeah.
And I just struggle with the standard psychological interpretation that this is just a defense mechanism. I mean, if the brain is actively trying to simulate a threat to prepare us for danger, why would it artificially suppress the panic?
That's a really good question.
Isn't it more likely that the brain's emotional rendering engine is just, well, lagging?
Lagging.
Yeah, like the prefrontal cortex hasn't fully relinquished control yet, so the brain simply fails to render the appropriate terror.
You know, that is a very sharp computational analogy, and it actually aligns perfectly with the neurobiology of early REM sleep.
Really?
Yeah. When you transition into a dream, particularly from a night-owned state, the amygdala, which is the brain's threat detection center, doesn't always activate instantaneously.
It needs a minute to boot up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The dreamer is still clinging to waking life behavioral scripts. In the waking world, when we face a minor setback, what do? We use social masking.
We laugh it off.
We laugh it off and say, oh, well, life happens. So the brain is running that outdated script because the amygdala hasn't yet overridden the system.
So it isn't a defense mechanism.
No, it's latency. The rendering engine just hasn't caught up to the narrative stakes yet.
Latency, I love that. The brain is basically buffering the terror.
Yes, exactly. Buffering.
But that buffer runs out incredibly fast.
I imagine it does.
Because just as the dreamer is leaning into this artificial normalcy, trying to reach a train station, the environment just turns on them.
A shift happens.
The transition here doesn't just change the scene. It straight up breaks the established laws of physics.
Oh, boy.
1 second, they're walking down a paved street in a modern metropolis. And in the span of a single blink, the city completely evaporates.
Just gone.
Gone. The dreamer is suddenly standing inside a school classroom, but the architectural boundaries have been deleted. There are no walls.
Okay, so the spatial anchor has been completely severed.
Severed, yeah.
This happens when the parahippocampal place area, which is the region of the brain that helps us recognize environmental scenes, essentially resets its coordinate system mid-simulation.
And what it replaces the city with is just pure chaos.
What's out there?
The Wallace classroom is completely surrounded by a raging, stormy sea.
Wow.
And on that sea, closing in from all sides, is a fleet of historical pirate ships.
Pirate ships, of course.
Yes. We go from a modern financial dispute to a literal naval bombardment. Arrows and musket bullets are flying over the water, just ripping through the air toward the dreamer.
That is a massive escalation.
It is. Now, the source material highlights one incredibly bizarre detail regarding this attack.
Okay.
The pirates are not just firing blindly into the classroom. They have a designated target.
Who are they aiming at?
They're aiming entirely at one specific friend of the dreamer.
Oh, the individual referred to in the text as the keyman.
Yes, the keyman. Now, from a narrative perspective, you would assume the keyman possesses some, I don't know, tactical advantage?
Right, like he's a soldier or something.
But no. The dreamer notes, in real time within the dream, that this friend is the prime target solely because he had appeared in the dreamer's physical, real-life dream journal a few days prior.
That is, wow. The metacognition happening here is just extraordinary.
It's so weird.
The dreamer is actively accessing waking life episodic memory like the act of writing in a physical journal while inside a deeply compromised REM state.
And the memory they pull is so absurd. The dreamer remembers that in that previous dream, this specific friend was holding a relative's baby.
Okay.
And when the dreamer looked closer in that old dream, the baby had inexplicably morphed into a plate of yakisoba noodles.
A yakisoba, babe, yeah.
Like yakisoba, baby. So I have to ask you, what is the computational logic here? We have a life or death survival scenario with a naval bombardment.
Right.
Why does the brain cast a random buddy as the ultimate target, and why tether his entire significance to a glitchy memory of a stir-fried noodle baby?
Well, to understand this, we really have to look at the threat simulation theory of dreaming.
Okay, what's that?
It was proposed by a cognitive neuroscientist named Antti Revonsuo. The theory essentially posits that the biological function of dreaming is to simulate threatening events so we can rehearse threat perception and avoidance.
So it's like a danger simulator.
Exactly. So when the pirates attack, the amygdala is fully online, screaming that there is a lethal threat. The brain needs a focal point for this threat. It needs to designate a target. But the prefrontal cortex, which is our logical editor, is offline. So the brain just throws out a search query into the hippocampus.
Yeah.
Hey, find me something anomalous, something highly salient.
And the hippocampus just blindly grabs the file labeled yakisoba baby
Right.
because it has a high novelty tag on it.
Exactly. It's essentially a prompt collision, to use an AI analogy.
Oh, I like that.
The brain's memory retrieval during REM sleep doesn't prioritize logical relevance at all. It prioritizes emotional and bizarre resonance.
Because it's just grabbing whatever stands out.
Right. The friend from the noodle dream was already neurologically tagged as this unresolved anomaly. So when the simulation demands a focal point for the pirate attack, it recycles the most readily available anomalous asset.
Even if it makes zero sense.
It's highly efficient, even if it's narratively nonsensical. And the sudden shift from a modern scam to an archaic pirate attack signals that the brain has abandoned all attempts at maintaining the illusion of a modern, civilized social contract.
The gloves are off.
The threat is now primal, it's visceral, and it's totally uncontainable.
So the latency period is officially over.
Definitely over.
The dreamer and the keyman are forced to run for their lives. They manage to escape the open-air classroom, jump down into a small boat, and navigate away from this chaotic naval warfare.
Okay, good. They get away.
And here, the geography warps again. It moves them from the violent ocean to a shockingly serene, idyllic country river.
A huge contrast.
There's a small, rustic hut nearby. They find a concrete wall and just drop down behind it to hide. They're utterly exhausted, trying to slow their breathing.
The autonomic nervous system is likely attempting to self-regulate here.
What do you mean?
The transition from the raging sea to a quiet river mirrors the parasympathetic nervous system trying to pull the body out of extreme fight or flight.
So it's calming them down.
The brain is actively trying to lower the dreamer's physical heart rate by generating a peaceful landscape.
Well, the threat hasn't vanished.
Yeah.
As they are crouching behind this concrete wall, the tension completely shifts from explosive action to this creeping dread. They hear a rustling sound coming from above them. Someone is up there on the upper level.
They're being hunted.
The dreamer peers up and realizes someone has stealthily set up a small tent and is lining the inside of it with towels, preparing to sleep.
Weird detail, but okay.
Now, we are in a lethal evasion scenario. What is the dreamer's tactical response? Do they find a rock? Do they fashion a weapon?
Probably neither, knowing dreams.
No. The dreamer and the keyman communicate entirely silently, and they pull out a massive water hose, or essentially a giant squirt gun.
A squirt gun?
And they blast a high-pressure stream of water straight up into the tent.
Wow. It is a fundamentally childish response to what is perceived as a lethal threat.
Right. I read this and thought, why would a brain that just simulated a massive pirate attack suddenly equip the dreamer with a super soaker?
Well, this is actually a textbook manifestation of rematonia bleeding into the dream narrative.
Rematonia.
Yeah, so during REM sleep, your body is effectively paralyzed.
Oh, right. So you don't act out your dreams.
Exactly. It's a biological safeguard to prevent you from physically injuring yourself in bed.
Yeah.
The motor cortex is sending signals to your limbs to strike out, to punch, to throw a weapon, but the brainstem is actively blocking those signals from reaching your muscles.
So the dreamer feels weak because their physical body is literally paralyzed.
Precisely. The subconscious rendering engine registers this physical limitation. It realizes, look, I cannot generate the force required for a lethal kinetic strike.
Wow.
So it rationalizes this physical weakness by substituting a lethal weapon with a harmless toy. The squirt gun is literally the brain's architectural compromise for sleep paralysis.
That is a staggering way to frame it. The brain is writing the script around its own hardware limitations.
It really is.
And remarkably, the squirt gun tactic actually works.
Oh, it does.
Yeah. The water flushes the pursuer out of the tent. She stumbles down, and they immediately restrain her.
Okay.
But when they flip her over and look at her face, it's not a pirate. It's not a Yakuza assassin.
Who is it?
The face, staring back at the dringer, is a woman they had a massive, unrequited crush on back in high school.
The rapid reassignment of identity.
It's so jarring.
This is where the fusiform face area, which is the part of the brain responsible for facial recognition, gets completely hijacked by the emotional centers.
The dreamer is stunned. I mean, they have her tied up, fully believing she is a hostile combatant. But she looks at them and drops this massive narrative twist.
What's the twist?
She reveals that she isn't hunting them. She's actually a highly trained, covert spy.
A spy. Okay.
She has been gathering intelligence on the enemy forces, whoever they are at this point, and she deliberately tracked the dreamer down because she wants to help them survive.
The psychological layering here is just incredibly dense.
How do you mean?
Well, think about it. The face of an old, unrequited crush inherently carries a massive payload of unresolved emotion, right? Vulnerability, desire, rejection, and ultimately, mystery.
Yeah, that's true.
In waking life, a person you have a crush on possesses a sort of psychological power over you. Their motives are opaque to you. By casting her as a covert spy, someone who deals in secrets and hidden allegiances, the brain is perfectly mapping the emotional reality of a crush onto the tactical reality of the dream.
See, I hear that, and it's a beautiful, poetic interpretation. But I'm going to challenge it from a computational perspective again.
Okay, challenge away.
Is the brain really doing deep, poetic mapping about the nature of unrequited love? Or is it just being computationally lazy?
Lazy.
Yeah, I mean, the brain needs a friendly NPC with high emotional salience to deliver exposition. Generating a brand new face requires processing power.
That's fair.
Why not just dip into the asset library, grab a pre-rendered 3D model of a face that already has a high attention value attached to it, and just drop her into the scene?
You're touching on the theory of predictive coding in the brain here. The brain is always trying to minimize prediction errors to save energy. You are absolutely right that pulling a pre-existing, highly salient face is computationally cheaper than rendering a complete stranger.
Okay, so it is lazy.
But wait, the role she is assigned, the spy, is where the psychology merges with the computation. The brain doesn't just reuse the asset, it contextualizes it.
I see.
The transition from a terrifying threat to a hostage to a vital military ally in the span of 30 seconds really illustrates how fluid synaptic tagging is during REM sleep. A single face can cycle through multiple emotional states depending on the immediate narrative demand.
And her narrative demand right now is to push them back into the fire.
No, they have to go back.
Yeah. Her intel is critical, but it comes with a terrible cost. To utilize the data she has gathered, she tells them they have to abandon this peaceful river and return to the very place they just barely escaped.
The school.
The war-torn school.
Returning to the site of trauma, the brain forces a confrontation with the unresolved environment.
When they get back, the spatial geometry is intact, but the atmosphere is basically apocalyptic. The school is in absolute ruins.
Just destroyed.
Other students are scattered around, cowering on the floor, covering their heads in sheer despair. It looks like the aftermath of an aerial bombing.
Wow, so the stakes are still incredibly high.
Very high. The spy explains that her organization has covertly set up an enemy tracking radar device in the classroom next door.
Okay.
The key man, our noodle baby friend, steps up and begins explaining the technical interface of this radar.
Of course he does.
But right as they are gearing up for this tactical strike, the dream's narrative engine violently switches tracks.
What happens?
It pauses the war thriller to inject a sequence of absolute mind-bending absurdity.
The intermission of the subconscious.
Out of nowhere, a high schooler swaggers up to the group. He is described in the source text as a Yankee.
A Yankee. So in Japanese pop culture, that's a term for a juvenile delinquent, like a tough guy punk.
Exactly. This Yankee completely ignores the war zone, puffs out his chest, and boasts, "I am a Miyadaiku."
We really need to pause here to explain the sheer cultural weight of that statement.
Please do, because it's wild.
A Miyadaiku is not a standard carpenter. They are the elite, traditional Japanese temple and shrine builders.
Okay.
They use complex wooden joinery techniques, which is known as kigumi, to construct these massive sacred structures entirely without nails.
Without nails. That's incredible.
Yeah, and their work is designed to withstand earthquakes and last for over a millennium. It is a discipline that requires decades of ascetic dedication, reverence for nature, and absolute precision.
So you have this punk teenager who is the exact opposite of ascetic dedication, claiming to be a master of sacred geometry in the middle of a pirate war zone.
It makes no sense.
And the dreamer's brain decides to escalate this absurdity even further.
How?
The dreamer turns around and looks at the corner of this ruined classroom. Amidst the cowering students and the despair, there's a folded stepladder tipped over on its side.
Okay.
And sitting entirely casually on this sideways stepladder is the dreamer's entire immediate family: mom, dad, brother, and sister.
A little pocket of surreal domesticity entirely insulated from the threat.
Not only insulated, they are celebrating. They're eating festive red rice sekihan and traditional New Year's food, oseki.
Wow. This is food meant for the most joyous milestones.
But the true centerpiece of this family reunion is the grandfather. The dreamer notes that their grandfather is deceased in the waking world, but here he is, sitting with the family.
Right?
Only there is a massive visual rendering error. He doesn't look anything like the grandfather.
Who does he look like?
He looks exactly like the American billionaire investor Warren Buffett.
Oh my God. This is perhaps the most complex cognitive blending in the entire diary.
It's hilarious. The dream immediately establishes the internal lore. This Warren Buffett-looking grandfather is a 100-year-old veteran Miyadaiku.
Okay.
He is the undisputed god-tier master of this sacred carpentry. The dreamer looks at the bragging Yankee punk and says, "Oh yeah, well, my grandfather is a master Miyadaiku. Let's see your skills."
A woodworking duel.
A woodworking duel is initiated.
A woodworking duel is initiated. The Yankee takes out a chisel and does a respectable job on a wooden pillar. But then Grandpa Warren Buffett steps up.
Here we go.
He says calmly, "Let's do it this way." And here is where the physics of the dream completely detach from reality.
Even more than they already have.
Way more. Grandpa Buffett takes a heavy axe and swings it down, chopping a solid wooden log perfectly in half. But when the log splits open, the interior isn't wood grain.
What is it?
The inside of the log is woven like a synthetic screen mesh, like a window screen.
So the brain is hallucinating a synthetic interior within a natural object.
Yes. He takes a small knife and delicately slices this internal mesh horizontally over and over with blinding speed.
Okay.
Finally, he takes a hammer, gives the entire contraption a solid thwack, and magically, the wood and the mesh instantaneously transform into a beautiful, shimmering bead curtain.
A bead curtain.
The Yankee punk drops to his knees, utterly defeated and in awe of this magical carpentry. I mean, what is happening?
It's just spectacular. We have a billionaire investor merged with a deceased grandfather practicing sacred Japanese shrine carpentry to turn a mesh-filled log into a bead curtain during a naval bombardment. It feels like an AI image generator was fed 10 conflicting prompts and just mashed them all together.
That AI prompt collision is exactly what is happening in the neural networks. This sequence is a masterclass in what cognitive scientists Yil Fauconnier and Mark Turner call conceptual blending.
Conceptual blending.
Yeah. So in a state of extreme distress like being in the war-torn school, the subconscious desperately requires a soothing mechanism. It needs an anchor of absolute stability.
Okay, I follow.
So the brain queries its semantic memory for concepts related to stability, authority, and mastery.
And it pulls Warren Buffett.
Yes, because to a modern mind, who represents long-term, unshakable financial stability and grandfatherly wisdom better than Warren Buffett.
That's actually very logical.
But the brain also queries its cultural memory for structural stability, and it pulls the Miyadaiku, the builders of unshakable shrines. It blends the ultimate modern capitalist authority with the ultimate traditional architectural authority and places them both onto the emotional framework of the deceased grandfather, who is the ultimate patriarchal protector.
So it's the brain creating the ultimate superhero of stability.
Exactly. And the magical carpentry turning a log with a bizarre synthetic mesh into a perfectly ordered bead curtain is a display of mastery over the physical world.
Because everything else is falling apart.
Right. While the dreamer's environment is in chaos, Grandpa Buffett demonstrates that matter can still be ordered, beautiful, and completely controlled.
Wow.
The Yankee punk represents the chaotic, undisciplined threat of youth, and he's easily humbled by the quiet, masterful authority of the elder. It is a profound psychological balm. The brain is actively trying to comfort the dreamer.
But the comfort is incredibly short-lived.
Isn't it always?
Because just as the dreamer is standing there, marveling at the beautiful bead curtain, modern technology violently re-enters the narrative and rips the comfort away.
What happens?
An incredibly loud, shrill alarm suddenly starts blaring through the ruined school corridors.
Ooh!
Down the hallway, a female teacher comes sprinting toward them, and she is absolutely furious.
Okay.
She is screaming, who is using the entire region's radio waves. I can't open my front door.
This is such a great example of the translation of abstract existential dread into highly specific, mundane technological friction.
I can't open my smart lock because someone hijacked the grid.
Exactly.
And it turns out this is the dreamer's fault, by proxy. The dream's internal logic kicks in and provides the exposition.
Let's hear it.
When the high school crush spy set up that enemy tracking radar in the next room, she didn't just use a cellular data plan. She hijacked the entire region's radio frequency to power the device, causing a massive system error across the neighborhood.
So the mechanism of salvation becomes the source of a new crisis.
Exactly. The dreamer and the keyman realize they have to fix it. They rush into the next classroom, furiously typing and resetting the radar system to free up the bandwidth so this teacher can get into her house.
Oh, troubleshooting in a dream. Classic.
And here is the truly fascinating part. As soon as they fix the Wi-Fi glitch, they look back at the radar, and the enemies are simply gone.
Just gone.
The pirates, the war, the despair, it all vanishes instantly. The school returns to being a completely normal, peaceful building. The existential threat is neutralized entirely by IT troubleshooting.
This is incredibly revealing regarding how the modern brain processes stress.
How so?
Well, evolutionarily, our brains are wired to fear predators, lions, or in this case, pirates.
Right.
But in our contemporary reality, our daily cortisol spikes are triggered by technological failures. The Wi-Fi dropping during a crucial meeting, a locked account, a system error.
Oh, totally.
The brain doesn't differentiate well between the existential terror of a predator and the social and economic terror of a system failure.
So they feel like the same level of threat.
Yeah. By resolving the technological glitch in the dream, the brain satisfies its own criteria for threat resolution, and the pirates simply despawn.
It's like the brain realized, oh, the real danger wasn't the cannonballs, it was the latency.
Exactly.
Which perfectly sets up their next problem. Now that they aren't being shot at, the group finally relaxes. They decide they want to head back into Tokyo and get some drinks.
Back to the original plan.
But memory asserts itself. They remember the inciting incident from the airport lounge. They are completely broke. That 60-year-old scammer took all their money. The primary anxiety resurfaces.
The brain operates on unresolved loops. The secondary threat. The war was resolved, so the primary threat reemerges.
They need cash. To make a quick buck, they decide to start a makeshift taxi service right there on the street.
Okay, sure.
They have access to a vehicle that is described as a cross between a tricycle and a tuk-tuk. You know, those three-wheeled open-air taxis common in Southeast Asia.
I don't know them, yeah.
Before they can even look for a passenger, a fleet of police cars speeds past them, sirens blaring. The dreamer asks a bystander, what is happening? And they get the news.
The scam.
The original scammer, the skinny old man who extorted them, is causing massive trouble in the city again.
The antagonist returns, demanding resolution.
The dreamer is instantly filled with a blinding rage. They want their money back. They jump into the driver's seat of the tuk-tuk, grab the handlebars, and twist the throttle as hard as they can to chase him down.
And let me guess.
And then?
Yeah.
Nothing happens. The tuk-tuk is completely dead. It refuses to move. They are stranded.
The failure of mechanics.
But the dream isn't done tormenting them. Just as they're standing there, furious at the broken tuk-tuk, 3 bizarre new vehicles silently roll up, as if mocking them.
What are they?
They are tricycles, but they're driven by AI robots.
AI robots.
And I need to paint a picture of these things because the source text is very specific. The dreamer describes these AI bikes as being constructed from incredibly thin, flimsy metal pipes.
Okay.
They look skeletal. They look so fragile that if even a small child sat on them, the pipes would snap. But they are supposedly advanced AI-driven machines.
What a juxtaposition. High-tech intelligence housed in hopelessly fragile hardware.
Out of sheer desperation, the group decides they have to use them. The dreamer and their friends each climb onto one of these skeletal robot bikes to chase the scammer.
This won't go well.
What follows is a miserable, chaotic, infuriating ride. The AI system is incredibly fragile and completely inept at navigating physical reality.
Of course it is.
The robots cannot avoid obstacles. They're crashing into curbs, the bikes are tipping over, the riders are getting tossed onto the pavement. At one point, they're swerving erratically into traffic and almost get run over by full-size cars.
It sounds awful.
It is a terrifying, frustrating mess. Finally, entirely fed up with the lack of control, the dreamer throws the bike to the ground, abandons the useless AI, and decides to chase the scammer on foot.
This sequence is a flawless manifestation of the frustration dream.
We've all had them, right?
Oh, absolutely. Trying to dial a phone number, but your fingers won't hit the right keys, or trying to run, but feeling like your legs are submerged in concrete.
But why does this happen? Why can my brain render a massive, historically accurate pirate ship, but it can't render a working tuk-tuk or a functional tricycle?
It comes down to how the brain processes dynamic, interactive systems versus static imagery.
Can you explain that?
Sure, generating a static image of a pirate ship requires visual memory. Operating a vehicle requires the prefrontal cortex to maintain working memory of a logical sequence. Twist throttle, engage engine, turn wheel, avoid obstacle.
And the prefrontal cortex is turned off.
Right. Because it is suppressed during sleep, the brain cannot maintain the logical continuity required to simulate a mechanical engine or an AI's pathfinding algorithm.
That makes total sense.
The harder you try to force a logical mechanical interaction in a dream, the more the world resists you because the computational power required to simulate cause and effect physics simply isn't online.
So the technology fails because my brain doesn't have enough RAM to run the physics engine.
That's a perfect way to describe it.
So, abandoning the glitchy vehicles, the dreamer pursues the scammer on foot, relying purely on biological movement. And running on foot leads them into an entirely new, deeply unsettling environment.
Here we go again.
The landscape shifts again, but this time it doesn't just change scenery, it warps space and time.
We are entering the labyrinth.
The dreamer follows a tip that the scammer is hiding nearby. They run down a main street and turn into a narrow, shadowy alleyway.
Okay.
The source text reads like actual steady directions.
Yeah.
They go down this alley, use a specific beauty salon as a landmark to take sharp left, walk past a municipal government office on the right, and finally arrive at a tiny, cramped little dive bar.
Very detailed.
It feels incredibly grounded. But as the dreamer steps into this tiny bar and pushes deeper into the hallway looking for the scammer, the architecture begins to maliciously expand.
Ah, the TARDIS effect. Spatial reality breaks down.
Exactly. What started as a tiny single-room bar keeps extending backward. The hallway gets longer, the ceilings get higher.
It just keeps growing.
The decor shifts radically. It transforms from a dingy modern dive bar into this massive, sprawling, historically rich establishment. It looks like a high-end, multi-story Japanese or Chinese izakaya, bathed in the oppressive red glow of traditional paper lanterns.
Wow.
And as they climb the stairs to the upper levels of this labyrinthine izakaya, they uncover something truly disturbing.
What is it?
The space ceases to be a place of hospitality and instead becomes a physical architectural manifestation of generational exploitation.
Okay, what exactly do they witness on the upper floors?
It is a massive industrialized operation. The dreamer realizes that this sprawling establishment is secretly connected to that municipal government office they passed across the street.
Oh, wow.
Elderly men and women are using bureaucratic administrative loopholes processed right across the street to gain free access to this luxurious upper floor.
I see.
They are receiving high-end massages, using expensive beauty equipment, and lounging in absolute comfort. They're completely draining the system's resources because they know how to exploit the rules.
That's a very specific scenario.
But the horrifying part is who is providing the labor. The dreamer looks around and sees the floor dotted with these tiny, claustrophobic, transparent glass rooms.
Glass room.
They look like little glass phone booths.
Mm-hmm.
And packed inside these tiny, suffocating boxes are young people.
Oh, that's dark.
They're crammed in, sweating, looking utterly exhausted, being ruthlessly overworked to provide these luxury services to the elderly patrons outside the boxes.
The visual contrast is just staggering. The expansiveness of the luxury versus the claustrophobia of the labor.
Now, I have to stop here. When I read this, I thought, is the default mode network really capable of generating a hyper-specific Marxist socioeconomic critique on Japan's aging population and the crushing burden placed on the youth?
It sounds like it, doesn't it?
Because that is exactly what this is. Is the brain really that politically aware while we are asleep, or is this just literal spatial rendering of claustrophobia?
Well, it is absolutely a macroeconomic critique, but the engine driving it is deeply personal microanxiety.
What do you mean?
Consider how abstract anxieties are processed. You read the news, you absorb ambient cultural stress about the economy, about demographic collapse, about the younger generation supporting the older one.
Right.
During the day, your prefrontal cortex processes this intellectually. But during REM sleep, the brain lacks the ability to process abstract data. It has to encode it spatially and visually.
So it builds an architecture of inequality.
Precisely. And remember where the dream started. The dreamer, a younger person, was extorted by a 60-something-year-old man who used hidden power structures to steal their money.
Oh, it all links back.
Yes, the brain takes that acute personal feeling of being cheated by an older generation and magnifies it into an entire societal structure.
Wow.
The young people trapped in the glass boxes mirror the dreamer's own feeling of being trapped in the airport lounge. They are highly visible, they are working relentlessly, but they are enclosed and exploited by a system designed to benefit the elderly patrons who know how to manipulate the government loopholes.
That's incredible.
The anxiety is quite literally manifested in the physical geometry of the building.
The deeper you go into the building, the more systemic the corruption becomes. And when you confront systemic corruption in a dream, it usually demands a confrontation at the very top,
Going straight to the boss.
fueled by an absolute righteous rage at seeing this exploitation. The dreamer pushes past the glass boxes and heads to the highest floor of this labyrinth to find the architect of this misery.
And what do they find?
They find a small window with a handwritten sign on it. It reads, "With infuriating casualness, feeling tired today, so I'm resting. Might open again in about an hour if I feel like it."
The ultimate arrogance of entrenched power.
The dreamer is having none of it. Their friend, the keyman, violently pries the window open and screams, "We know you're in there, come out."
Good for him.
Out steps the owner of this entire massive operation. It is a 70-year-old woman, a madam, or okami in Japanese, dressed in an immaculate, highly traditional kimono.
The matriarch.
She is the matriarch of the labyrinth. She plays completely dumb. Oh, all the shouting, whatever's the matter.
Of course she does.
The dreamer screams that they were scammed by the taxi driver guy, and they know he is hiding in her room. The madam steps aside with a smirk, and sure enough, the scammer is cowering in the corner.
Got him.
But before the dreamer can lunge and grab him, he bolts out a back door.
The chase resumes, and the geography is likely to warp again.
Instantly. The dreamer and the keyman sprint after him, bursting through the back door.
Yeah.
But when they cross the threshold, they are no longer on the top floor of an izakaya.
Where are they?
They are suddenly back down on the street level, standing in a wide alleyway lined with high-end traditional restaurants. The scammer is nowhere to be seen.
Gone again?
The dreamer is losing their mind. They're screaming at the pedestrians on the street. Where did he go? But the crowd just stares at them in this eerie, complicit, dead-eyed silence.
Creepy.
The dreamer realizes everyone in this district is in on the scam.
Paranoia is fully taking root here. The environment is entirely hostile.
But then, a new character steps out of the crowd. It's a middle-aged man, and he calmly announces that he is the son of the skinny old scammer.
The sun. Okay.
He looks at the dreamer with apparent sincerity and says, "My father did wrong, and I share his guilt."
That's surprisingly accountable for a dream.
The keyman grabs the son by the collar and screams, "Then give us our money back."
Yeah.
But the son doesn't reach for a wallet. Instead, he initiates the most mind-bending, surreal, glitch-like sequence of the entire hour.
Okay, what does he do?
The son calmly pulls out a ceramic plate. He cracks a raw egg onto it.
A raw egg.
Then he takes a bar of soap, mixes the soap with the raw egg, lathers it furiously between his palms until it creates a thick, viscous foam, and then he casually drops that foam onto the cobblestone street.
Where is this going?
As soon as the bubbles hit the ground, they rapidly expand. And out of that soapy puddle, the escaped father, the 60-year-old scammer, is physically birthed back into reality.
What?
He just materializes from the suds, fully formed.
A literal biological clone generated from soap and egg. That is wild.
The dreamer and the keyman immediately attack the father and beat him down. He vanishes.
Okay.
But the son just stands there, mixes more egg and soap, drops the bubbles, and pop. The father respawns again.
Oh, no.
They defeat him. He vanishes. The son makes more bubbles. The father respawns. It is an endless, maddening loop of infinite cloning.
This is a spectacular example of procedural memory looping. It's essentially a glitch in the basal ganglia during sleep.
A glitch.
Yeah. The brain is trying to resolve a conflict, catching the scammer, but it cannot formulate a logical next step after the catch. So, much like a scratched vinyl record, it just loops the action. It creates a Sisyphean task.
It is incredibly frustrating. Finally, the dreamer realizes that fighting the infinite clones is useless. They lunge past the bubbles and grab the son directly by the chest, roaring, "Stop doing that."
And physical contact with the source of the anomaly triggers the final escalation.
As soon as the dreamer grabs the son, the heavy, thudding sound of synchronized footsteps echoes from the stairs of the izakaya.
Who is
Marching out into the alleyway is a group of heavily built, terrifying middle-aged men in dark, immaculately tailored suits.
the Yakuza?
These are not low-level street thugs. These are the bosses,
Right.
the heads of various Yakuza syndicates. There are about 9 of them, and they are armed to the teeth with massive butcher knives, long blades, and actual samurai swords.
This is escalating so fast.
And the dream drops a final, devastating piece of lore. That 70-year-old kimono-clad madam.
Yeah.
She isn't just a corrupt restaurant owner. She is the true boss, the grand matriarch that all these terrifying Yakuza leaders revere and protect.
Wow.
The hierarchy is fully revealed. The dreamer is at the very bottom, and the entire system is heavily armed and designed to crush them.
Yeah.
The dreamer looks around. The key man is gone. The friends are gone.
Totally isolated.
The dreamer is backed into a corner of the alley, completely alone, facing 9 armed Yakuza bosses.
The ultimate fight-or-flight scenario.
The dreamer chooses fight, and they do so by attempting to hack their own subconscious with a massive dose of pop culture.
Oh, this should be good.
Suddenly, the dreamer looks down at their own body and realizes they have physically transformed. They are no longer their normal self. They are now massive, hyper-muscular, and look exactly like the protagonist from the hyper-violent martial arts anime Baki.
Baki the Grappler. For context, this is a series known for incredibly exaggerated, almost anatomical martial arts violence, where characters possess godlike physical prowess.
Exactly. The dreamer even starts acting like the character, adopting the persona. They look at the Yakuza boss and quote a famous line from the anime muttering, "Terrible father," which is a direct reference to Baki's psychotic father, Yujiro Hanma.
That's hilarious.
The dreamer assumes the iconic anime power-up posture. They are doing the math in their head. These guys are middle-aged, they are heavy, they will be slow. I am an anime martial arts god now. I can easily dodge their strikes, counterattack, and kill all 9 of them.
This is the brain attempting a lucid power fantasy.
You get power fantasy.
Yeah. When we feel utterly overwhelmed in a nightmare, the prefrontal cortex sometimes flickers online just enough to try and shield us by granting us superpowers or turning us into a fictional hero.
Oh, that makes sense.
It's an attempt to conquer the threat by rewriting the rules of the simulation.
Well, the dreamer's fully confident. They wait for the first Yakuza boss to attack with his massive butcher knife. The boss swings, and the dreamer's strategy fails instantly and catastrophically.
The power fantasy shatters.
It is utterly rejected by the brain. The Yakuza boss isn't slow. He moves at blinding, superhuman speed.
Oh no.
The dreamer tries to parry the knife using their Baki martial arts skills, but the blade slices right through their defense as if it wasn't there. It is a massacre.
Brutal.
The violence described in this segment of this source text is incredibly graphic and hyper-realistic. The dreamer's wrists are shredded. The palms of their hands are sliced open to the bone. The boss moves so fast he leaves after images in the air. He swings again, and the dreamer's entire right wrist is severed. Another swing, and the left shoulder is heavily damaged. The dreamer is being systematically dismantled.
The amygdala is actively overriding the prefrontal cortex's attempt at control here.
It's punishing them.
Exactly. The brain is punishing the dreamer for attempting the power fantasy. It is enforcing the reality of vulnerability.
And it feels real.
Furthermore, the visceral reality of this pain, like the feeling of the wrist being shredded, is due to the somatosensory cortex remaining highly active during REM sleep. The brain is simulating the pain of the sword slashes with horrifying fidelity.
The dreamer is bleeding out, missing limbs, completely helpless. In a final desperate move, as the boss goes for a lethal strike to the neck, the dreamer uses the bloody stump of their right arm to somehow grip a short knife they had and thrusts it upward, stabbing the first boss in the neck and killing him.
A Pyrrhic victory, if I've ever heard one.
Barely a victory at all, because instantly, a voice booms out from the remaining men. Next, a second Yakuza boss steps up, this one armed with a long katana sword.
It's just relentless.
And he is even faster than the first guy. The dreamer tries to step inside the guard to use their short knife, but the reach disadvantage is insurmountable. The boss raises the katana for the final executing strike.
This is it.
The dreamer realizes it's over. They accept death. They close their eyes, waiting for the feeling of being sliced into pieces. The blade comes down. And a miracle. Every single strike from the katana, moving at blinding speed, miraculously misses the dreamer by millimeters.
Wow.
The dreamer survives purely by mathematical chance.
You know, this is a deeply profound mechanism.
Why is that?
Usually the anime power-up is meant to give the dreamer agency and control. Here, the subconscious violently rejects that agency. It shreds the dreamer's avatar to pieces to enforce the reality of their weakness. And the survival at the end isn't earned through skill, strength, or the Baki transformation. It's entirely arbitrary. It reinforces the central theme of the nightmare. The dreamer is entirely at the mercy of this hostile, systemic world.
It breaks their spirit completely. Realizing they cannot fight, missing limbs and bleeding profusely, the dreamer turns and makes one last desperate run for survival.
Flight is the only option left.
They sprint out of the alleyway, scrambling over a staircase railing with their good arm, running as fast as their damaged body can carry them. But the labyrinth has one final trap.
Of course it does.
The dreamer runs down a street in the middle of this Tokyo-like city and hits a dead end. They find themselves standing at the top of a massive, sheer concrete wall.
Like the wall from earlier.
It visually mirrors the wall they hid behind earlier with the spy, but this one is incredibly high up. It's a precipice.
Okay.
The dreamer looks down. The ground far below isn't pavement. It's covered in thick, vibrant green moss, and pooling all over the moss is this unnatural, sickly colored blood.
That is a horrifying image.
It's a terrifying drop. But the dreamer can hear the synchronized footsteps of the remaining Yakuza bosses closing in fast from behind.
The ultimate dilemma. Face the certain violent death behind you or the probable death below you.
The dreamer doesn't hesitate. They jump.
The leap of faith. The vestibular system in the inner ear often misfires during sleep, creating that really vivid sensation of falling.
They plummet toward the moss, and the impact is brutal. The dreamer doesn't die upon hitting the ground, but they shatter their right ankle.
Ouch!
The text describes the bone violently snapping and turning completely sideways. The dreamer is paralyzed. They are lying on the moss, unable to stand, unable to crawl.
The trap closes.
They stare up at the top of the wall and see the terrifying figures of the Yakuza bosses peering down at them, preparing to figure out a way down to finish the job. The dreamer is trapped in a state of absolute paralyzing fear.
This is where sleep paralysis fully merges into the dream narrative.
What do you mean?
The broken ankle is the brain's narrative justification for the physical inability to move your real legs in bed.
Man, the brain is so clever.
It really is.
But the dream offers one final, lingering, incredibly poignant image before the dreamer wakes up.
What do they see?
As the dreamer lies there, helpless, bleeding out, they turn their head and look out past the alleyway onto the main city streets. And driving past them in the distance are those AI robot tricycles.
The same ones.
The exact same ones from earlier, the flimsy ones made of thin, fragile pipes that crashed into everything. They are just slowly putting along the street, struggling to stay upright.
Wow.
And as the dreamer looks at these useless robots while waiting to be murdered by the Yakuza, they experience a profound, incredibly complex emotion right as they jolt awake in real life.
What is it?
It wasn't just terror. It wasn't just the urge to scream for help. Intertwined with the absolute dread was a deep sense of regret. An apology.
An apology.
The dreamer looked at those robots and thought, maybe those little fragile AI bikes weren't so bad after all. I'm sorry I abandoned you.
Misplaced empathy.
It blew my mind when I read that. Why on earth, as you are bleeding out with a sideways ankle about to be executed by the mob, do you feel profound empathy for a broken algorithmic machine?
Because the machine is a mirror.
A mirror.
Yes. This is the true emotional climax of the dream, facilitated by the brain's mirror neurons firing in sleep. Throughout this entire one-hour odyssey, the dreamer has been trying to exert control, right?
Yeah,
Brushing off the scam, fighting the pirates, outsmarting the spy, summoning the magical grandfather, turning into an anime hero. They wanted to be strong, capable, and victorious. But the dream punished every single attempt at strength.
The AI bikes were clumsy, they were fragile, they broke under pressure, and they couldn't navigate the hostile environment. When the dreamer first saw them, they hated the bikes because the bikes represented weakness.
Exactly. But now, lying paralyzed at the bottom of a wall with a shattered ankle, stripped of all power fantasies and missing limbs, the dreamer realizes, I am the bike. The dreamer is just as fragile, just as clumsy, and just as incapable of navigating this terrifying, complex labyrinth of a world as those flimsy pipes.
So the apology.
The apology to the robot is the dreamer's ultimate acceptance of their own vulnerability. It's a moment of profound psychological grace, disguised as absurdity. The brain forces the dreamer to accept that they're not a superhero. They are fragile.
That is heavy. That is incredibly heavy for a dream that started with an overpriced bar tab.
It really is.
It speaks to the sheer, terrifying processing power of the subconscious mind. Let's just recap the density of the journey we just unpacked today.
It's a lot.
In the span of roughly 60 minutes of Nidone, that shallow morning slumber, this dreamer's brain constructed a seamless, computationally massive epic.
Seamless is right.
We went from a modern financial scam in a liminal airport lounge immediately into a historical naval war with pirates driven by threat simulation, where a guy with a yakisoba baby was targeted due to hippocampal indexing.
Just incredible.
We had high-tech espionage processing the unknowability of a high school crush, a magical woodworking cognitive blend featuring Warren Buffett, regional Wi-Fi outages manifesting existential dread, a deep architectural dive into the socio-economic exploitation of youth in glass boxes, a procedural memory loop of a guy cloning his dad with egg and soap, a hyper-realistic failure of an anime power fantasy, and finally, a literal leap of faith ending in shattered bones and a profound apology to a tricycle.
It is a masterpiece of surrealist architecture, all rendered in real time in 1 hour.
It really makes you look at your own brain with a lot more respect and maybe a little bit of fear.
Which leaves us with a final thought to ponder. We so often dismiss our dreams as random noise, as just the misfiring synapses of a resting brain, like a neurological garbage disposal.
Right, like it means nothing.
But what if they are actually the exact opposite? What if dreams are our brain's most desperate, most creative, and most highly advanced rendering engine, trying to prepare us for a world that is evolving faster than our evolutionary biology can handle?
Consider the media you consume, the news alerts about the economy, the financial stresses of your daily life, the rapidly changing technology, the pop culture you binge watch. Your brain takes all of that chaotic, abstract data, and while you lie paralyzed in the dark, it acts as a master director.
It really does.
It builds these bizarre, terrifying, and sometimes beautiful masterpieces just to try and make sense of the macro structures that govern your life. It constructs impossible labyrinths to teach you about vulnerability.
The brain is trying to keep you safe in a world it doesn't fully understand.
So think about what you watched today. Think about the stress you felt reading the news. Tonight, when you close your eyes and drift into that space where the walls disappear and the ocean rushes in, what kind of masterpiece is your mind going to direct tonight?
Something wild, I'm sure.
And more importantly, when the bill arrives, will you pay it?
Hmm.
We want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the chaotic, fascinating architecture of the subconscious mind. Sleep well.